Hello my friends and welcome to part 3 of the Macedol Loner Deck battles. So in today's episode I'll be taking a look at the final Loner Deck and doing an in-depth analysis on that. So the final Loner Deck is called Pleasure-Devouring Venom Dragon. Pleasure-Devouring Venom Dragon. And then the deck description states, this deck aims to fusion summon by using Predaplant monsters. Placing Predaplant counters on your opponent's monsters makes your Predaplant monsters even more deadly, so try to use them wisely. Be greedy and use the effects of cards like Predaplant, Clammy Dosundu to use even your opponent's monsters as materials for fusion summon. Also, this deck has built-in super polymerizations using your opponent's stuff as materials. That's cool. Anyway, let's get into it. Seems like an interesting deck. Okay, so it looks like this is an archetype of dark plant monsters. Anyway, first one is Predaplant Servasanient. When an opponent's monster declares direct attack, you get to special summon this card from your hand. And after damage calculation, when this battles, you get to destroy the opposing monster. If it's destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard via any card effect, yours or your opponent's, that's pretty cool, you get to add a Predamp card from your deck to your hand, except itself. And you can only use the last effect. It's a hard once per turn. That's cool, so it has that search. That's really cool. How easy is it to trigger it? Do you have any ways of destroying it yourself? I mean, besides just attacking into a monster? That's cool though. I guess it does kind of keep your opponent from really wanting to attack further, since if it's destroyed by battle, you search for a Predap card. Anyway, next one is Predaplant Cordyceps. During your standby phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target 2 level 4 lower Predaplant monsters in your graveyard, special summon them. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot special summon monsters except fusion monsters, nor normal summon or set any monsters. I mean, I guess it hurts you a little bit because that you don't get to special summon any more main deck monsters. Or normal summon or set any main deck monsters. But I mean, like, that doesn't really affect your X deck because all you're playing is fusions anyway, so yeah, seems. Yeah, and then you get, so this lets you go, lets you special summon out too by banishing it. So that's pretty cool. And you can wait until you make some of the other effect monster plays from here before you use this effect. The next one is Predaplant Spider Orchid. During the end phase, if this card was summoned this turn, so it's basically summoned anyway, you can discard 1 plant monster, add 1 level 4 or lower plant monster from your deck to your hand. That's pretty good. You get to trade a plant for another You get to trade a card. Oh wait, trade a plant for any level 4 lower plant. That's pretty good. It's a hard once per turn, and then its pendulum effect is during your main phase. If this card was activated this turn, you can target one of the face-up cards in the spell and trap zone, destroy it. You can only use this effect of playing Spider Orchid once per turn. That's cool. So that also helps against getting rid of like floodgates that you can, maybe field spells if your opponent has a really annoying field spell. Anyway, doesn't really help much against like the skill drain or the Monarchs of Up though. Anyway, the next one is Predaplant Flytrap. Once per turn, you can target one face-up monster your opponent controls, place one predator counter on it, and if it is level 2 or higher, it becomes level 1 as long as it has a predator counter. At the start of the damage step, when this card battles a monster with an equal or lower level, you can destroy that monster, then increase this card's level by the original level of the destroyed monster. Okay. So basically, its own effect allows you to lower it to level 1 so that you can guarantee destroy that monster with this card's effect. So you can make it level 1 and then go into battle phase and attack and be able to destroy it. And it's at the start of the damage step, so you don't have to worry about this card being destroyed itself. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And then it just increases by the original level, so it's even easier to destroy another card without necessarily having to make it level 1. So yeah, that's kind of cool, but yeah, that's actually a kind of a cool effect. But you're probably mostly going to fusions, but that's a really cool effect. I like it. Predaplant Squid Drosera is the next one. You can send this card from your hand to the graveyard, then target one face-up monster you control. This turn it can take and can attack all monsters your opponent controls with a predator counter once each. If this face-up card leaves the field, place one predator counter on each special summon monster your opponent controls, and if you do, any of those monsters that are level 2 or higher become level 1 as long as they have a predator counter. It kind of pairs really well with Flytrap because oh wait, but it has well, I suppose what you could do is you can send this card from your hand to a graveyard to target Flytrap, and then it can attack all monsters your opponent controls with a predator counter once each. And then you can special summon it back if you really wanted to, and then like have it leave the field by some means, and then you get to and then you place a predator counter on each special summon monster, and now Flytrap can attack all of those, and it'll like gain a whole bunch of levels off of that. It'll be such a high level after that, and it will have gotten rid of so many monsters. But like, is doing that really worth it? I don't know. It's kind of a cool combo, but it's probably not that worth it. You'd probably rather go into the fusions. But like, just thinking about it is kind of cool. Anyway, monsters with a predator counter that you use as fusion materials are treated as dark. During your main phase, you can fusion summon one dark fusion monster from your X deck. Using this card on the field, and monsters from your hand, field, and or monsters with predator counter your opponent controls as fusion materials. So you can only use this effect of Predaplant Clamido Sandu once per turn. Oh, there's the card that allows you to use your opponent's monsters as fusion materials. Kind of requires a little bit of setup in order to do that. But hey, if you can pull it off, you get... It's basically 3 extra super polys. It's just actually kind of cool. But since they're treated as dark, it's a little bit easier to go into the different fusions without necessarily having to care about what your opponent's monsters really are. Because I bet a lot of the fusions require simply dark attribute. We'll look at them, but that wouldn't make sense. I'll look at the fusions in a little bit to confirm. Anyway, the next one is Predaplant Terrapenthus. When it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you place a predator counter on one face-up monster that your opponent controls a target with it. And it has the effect where it becomes level 1. And then once per turn, once per turn, you target a monster your opponent controls with a level less than or equal to his card, say control of it until the end phase. Wow, so you could basically get to choose an opponent's monster to place a predator counter on, and then you just take control of it until the end phase. But oh man, that's another really cool one. That basically helps you that kind of basically can act as another fusion material target without having to need super polymerization in order to use that monster. Yeah, you just take control of one of the more oppressive boss monsters and then use that as fusion material. That's really cool. So the next card is Predaplant Scorpio. If this card is known as special summon, so basically summon in any way, you send a monster from your hand to the graveyard, trading that out for a Predaplant monster from your deck that you special summon. And it's a hard once per turn. So that's really cool. You get to, yeah, and then you special summon that Predaplant and still gets its effect. So this kind of acts as a better searcher for Predaplant monsters. So that's really cool. So you can search for like Clammy if you already have your opponent's monsters having a lot of predator counters, or you can search for Terrapenthus if you really need to take control of an oppressive boss monster. Maybe like just simply use that one as fusion material. Yeah, I think those are probably the best. I mean, maybe if you already have Clammy, you could also go for Squid, find some way of removing it first to place a counter on each special, and then you can use all of those with Clammy if you already have that on the field somehow. Because it actually has to be on the field in order to use its fusion summon effect. At least a good part about Clammy is it acts as a polymerization in and of itself. So that's pretty cool. Yeah. Anyway. Next one is Predaplant Darlingtonia Cobra. Oh yeah, this is also another good option to special summon. If it's special summoned by the effect of a Predaplant monster, so it works really well with Ophrys Scorpio, you get to search for a polymerization or fusion spell. And you add it to your hand from your deck, and it's a once per duel effect instead of being a hard once per turn effect. Yeah. But like there's still other options search besides that Darlingtonia Cobra. That it's pretty good for the search. It's basically the best way to pull it off, just simply spell summon it off of Ophi's. But there's other ways of being able to pull off its spell summon via a Predaplant monster. Anyway, the next one is Predaplant Marine Nepenthes. It gains 200 attack for each predator counter on the field, and when it destroys an opponent's monster by battle, you equip it to this card. Once per turn, you can target one monster card equipped to this card by the card effect. Destroy it, and if you do, gain life points equal to its original attack. Oh, it can't even give you opponent's predator counters itself. Oh, I don't think you're really good. No, I don't think that's really that great of an effect right there. Because it can only destroy so much with its effect. I mean, destroy so much per battle. Because it has 1600. I don't know, I probably would replace that with a better Predaplant myself. Yeah. I don't know, no. What would I place it with? Predaplant Spino Deonea is the next card. If this card is summoned by means, you place a predator counter on an opponent's monster that you target, and then of course it becomes level 1 as long as it has a predator counter, just like all the just because that's what predator counters do. After damage calculation, if this card battle a monster with an equal or lower level, you can special summon one Predaplant monster from your deck, except Predaplant Spino Dionea. So, this card is probably a better card than the Marine Nepenthes. You could probably always just put in an extra copy of this in replace of the Marine Nepenthes. Well, of course, maybe you want to replace some of your main deck monsters that are a little bit weaker with hand traps. Maybe you could even do Fly Trap. Because, like, how much are you really gonna want to, like, go as far as to attack your opponent's monsters? I mean, I guess it's kind of cool to get in a free destruction, but then I don't know. You might keep the Fly Trap, but maybe just have one Fly Trap, because it's only for predator counter monsters, and there's probably better ways of getting rid of monsters with predator counters other than Fly Trap. So maybe you should replace one Marine Nepenthes and 2 Fly Traps for like an Ash Blossom if you were to play this outside the lone deck scenario. Anyway, the next card is Predaplant Drosophilum Hydra. You get to special summon this card by triggering a monster on the player's field with a predator counter. See, much better oppression for predator counter monsters. You can only special summon this card once per turn this way. If this card is on the field or in your graveyard, it's a quick effect. You can banish one of the Predaplant monsters from your graveyard, then target one other monster. One face-up monster on the field, it loses 500 attack. And that's also a hard once per turn. That's cool. Yeah, its first effect is really good. It's kind of acts like a kaiju, but instead of putting it on your opponent's field, you put it on your own. So it kind of acts as a better kaiju. And then the next card is oh, so this one has basically the same effect where you get to tribute an opponent's monster with a predator counter in order to special summon this card from the hand. If this card is sent from the field to a graveyard, place one predator counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls, and if you do, any of those monsters that are level 2 or higher become level 1 as long as they have a predator counter. So that's kind of a better version of Predaplant Squid Drosera. It's a little bit hard to get out, but you might just want to like replace the Drosera with an extra copy of Banksy Ogre, because I don't think its effect to special summon itself, its cost for special summoning itself is actually really that bad. So yeah, maybe you could just replace a Drosera for an extra Banksy Ogre. For another example, this one allows you to special summon this card out as long as your opponent controls a monster with a predator counter. And if it's destroyed by an opponent's card, you get to special summon a dark dragon or dark plant from your graveyard. And it's each of its effects are hard once per turn. So that's cool. That's a good one too. Okay, so the next card is Hoppy's Feather Duster, which I like. Destroy spells and traps your opponent throws. Just an overall good card. Good for helping keep down those heavy back row control based players, or like any other players that have a few spells and traps that they like to keep on the board. Polymerization. One polymerization, of course, the original fusion spell. So of course that's always good. And then Monster Reborn. Good for getting back your boss monsters, extending plays, or simply taking a boss monster from your opponent's graveyard if they have one in there. It's also really good because you can tribute off one of your opponent's most oppressive monsters with Banksy Ogre or Drosophilum Hydra. Which actually you might just want to replace the Squid Drosera and the Drosophilum Hydra for just 3 copies of Banksy Ogre. I don't know. Or maybe just get rid of these 2 for more hand traps. But like, having 3 Banksy Ogre might not be bad. But yeah, anyway. So yeah, you can tribute off one of those with one of those monsters. One of your opponent's monsters with a predator. Which you can basically choose with like some other effects. So you can basically choose which one you're tributing off. And then this works really well in tandem with that, because then you can just special summon that to your field. So for example, you get rid of your opponent's Colossus, and then I'm pretty sure you can special summon out using the Monster Reborn. So now you have the Colossus on your field. So now the tables are turned, because I know a few players are probably going to be playing Colossus in this tournament because it's so good. Yeah. Or maybe even like a Destiny Phoenix Enforcer. Although if you do use the effect, it would be returned to your opponent's field, so not as good as just simply taking Colossus. I think that's how it would work. And then I think your opponent gets to choose if they special summon it back to their own field if you have to use the effect. So that's actually kind of dangerous. Like, the class is probably better. Anyway, the next one is Predator Practice, which allows you to special summon a Predaplant monster from your hand. And unfortunately, it doesn't trigger the Cobra since it has to be special summoned via one of your monster's effects, not just any Predator card. Anyway, so after you special summon, you get to search for a different Predator card. Yeah, that's not this card. And for the rest of its turn, the only being able to special summon fusion monsters from your extra deck doesn't really matter since you're only allowed to play fusion monsters anyway. Yeah, and of course it's all. And then if it's a hard once per turn too. So so pretty good card. Allows you to search. Just has quite a few ways of being able to like search for cards or bring out any kind of monster with Ophius Scorpio. So seems pretty good. And then this allows you to special summon one of your Predaplant monsters, and when this card leaves the field, you destroy that monster. But you're probably gonna use it for like a fusion material before, so you don't really have to worry about this much. But like if you do, you go for a fusion monster, that is something to keep in mind, that it could simply get destroyed if they destroy this card. And then of course defusion, really good for disrupting your opponent's fusion plays or like protecting your own, although it kind of protects your own in kind of a bad way. But if you have ways of like being able to bring out the a fusion again, or maybe like if you want to like replace the fusion sort of, you can always use it on your own fusion monster. I kept talking about that in my other videos as well, since this was like this was a card that showed up in every loner deck. So apparently Konami really likes to include this card. I mean, I can see why. And then but like, I mean, yeah, it seems pretty good. And then and then especially for this deck, since like, if like the boss monster can't really, I mean, I guess if there's a point where you can't really like do anything with the fusion monster, or like you want even more monsters on opponent's side of the field for whatever reason, you can always use defusion. And if you're able to like give all of those monsters that are summoned out predator counters, like then you would have technically more materials for for this card, the Clammy Do Sundu. So yeah, maybe. Anyway, Super Polymerization is the next card, allowing you to discard one card to fusion summon using monsters from either field as fusion materials, and neither player can activate card's effects in response to this card's effect. Card's activation. So yeah, that's a pretty good one. Fortunately, so kind of acts as, yeah, so but, and this might actually be better, since I think I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure Colossus is dark, and the two big fusions, the Phoenix Enforcer and the Colossus. I think they're both dark. The Colossus might actually be light, so maybe it's hard to use this against Colossus, but you do have other ways of being able to deal with the Colossus. But like, it's pretty good against the Phoenix Enforcer, since I know that's dark. So yeah. And actually, these cards are a little bit better at using super polymerizations, even just being pure, because a lot of the good boss fusion monsters, because dark is a pretty prevalent attribute. That's why. So at least as that. Anyway, the next card is Cosmic Cyclone, which again could have been replaced by a Lightning Storm. They just really love the Cosmic Cyclone this time for some reason. They think Lightning Storm was way too good in the last one, so they had to give you something worse. I don't know. But like, this was shared between all three as well. Next card is, but yeah, it's good for getting rid of any kind of spell or trap card on your opponent's out of the field, especially the more impressive ones like Skill Drain or Monk's Erupt if you're against a True Draco, or just like any kind, like depending on what kind of opponent you're facing. It's good to act, and since it's a quick play, it's good to activate in response to like a field spell or continuous effect, continuous back row effect, because they basically have to waste that effect, and if it's a hard once per turn, they can't just activate another one of those and get that effect. So yeah, not bad. Anyway, the next card is Predaplant, which allows you to reveal any number of Predap cards in your hand. Oh, okay, so and then allows you to place Predator counters. Oh, so you up to the number of Predap cards you revealed. So if you revealed 3, you can place a Predator counter on 3 of your opponent's monsters. And then it has a standard Predator counter effect. Yeah. And then if your Predaplant monster would be destroyed by battle, you can banish this card from grave instead. This card would probably be a pretty good one to play at 3. I think. Or at least 2. Since it's a pretty easy way of giving your opponent's monsters Predator counters. And then, of course, Called by the Grave. Really good for shutting down hand traps, or just monsters that you don't want your opponent to be able to get back, or that you want to have their effects negated if they have like some kind of like floating effect when they're sent to a graveyard, or some kind of graveyard base effect. Predaplant Fusion says if a Predaplant monster is on the field, fusion summon 1 dark fusion monster from your X deck using monsters from either field as material, including 2 or more dark monsters you control. You can only activate 1 Predaplant Fusion per turn. This one might actually be a better one to play at like at least 2 or 3 as well, since it kind of has a similar effect to Clamo. Yeah, seems pretty good. You could probably simply replace a Necrofusion for it, cause I don't really know how good Necrofusion is, because you have to banish the materials from the graveyard face down. I mean, sure, like you can use them. Okay, you can use them from the graveyard, but it is a little bit slow since it's a trap card. Okay, I don't know. And also, well, if you're if you're fusion summoning during your opponent's turn, you get to it cannot attack this turn. Doesn't really make much of a difference. And this is also pretty good since it's a quick play spell, so it can do a quick play fusion. Anyway, the next card is Predaplanting. Send one Predaplant monster from your deck to your graveyard. Place one Predator counter on each face-up monster on the field. And if you do, any of those monsters at level 2 or higher become level 1 as long as they have a Predator counter. If you fusion summon a dark monster while this card is in your graveyard, you can banish, except during the damage step, you can banish this card from your graveyard, then target one card on the field, destroy it. You can only use each effect of Predaplant once per turn. Yeah, this works pretty well with Predaplant fusion, because you can give your opponent's monsters Predaplant counters, and then you can use those along with your own for materials, and then also get to destroy another card on top of that. So yeah, you're being able to get rid of a bunch of cards through that. Predaplant is the last main deck card here. If a monster with a Predator counter leaves the field while this card is face up on the field, add one Predap card from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Predaplant once per turn. You can manage this card from your graveyard fusion, summon one fusion monster from your deck using monsters from your hand or field as fusion materials. Only Predaplant monsters can be used as fusion materials for a fusion summon using this effect. Still pretty good. This might have been a good card, also playing at least 2 copies of as well. Okay. But I'll go over what I feel my total changes at the end. Anyway, let's get started on the extra deck. So there's a lot of duplicates, so this shouldn't take too long. Mud Dragon in the Swamp is the first one, probably the best super polymerization target. Because it's the most generic. Of course, in this deck, if your opponent is playing a dark deck, it's really good against that. This is probably the best super poly deck in general, just because dark is such a prevalent attribute. Anyway, 2 monsters with the same attribute but different types. It calls for your opponent cannot target, and then of course this was in all of their decks. Your opponent cannot, so basically you get to change its attribute, card's attribute if you need, which dark seems to be the best. I think all of your other monsters are dark, so dark definitely seems to be the best attribute to call, and you get to protect both this card and your other dark monsters from being targeted with card effects by your opponent. Yeah, so that's pretty good. And then the next one is Chimera Flagia, which allows you to once per turn banish a monster on the field that has a level less than or equal to his card, which is actually pretty good because level 7, that means that basically any level 6, any level 7 or lower monster, so it can probably affect quite a few monsters with this effect. And then it has the other effect where when an attack is declared involving this card, you can have that opponent's monster lose 1,000 attack to have this card gain 1,000 attack. And then also has the graveyard effect during the next standby phase after it was sent to graveyard to search for a polymerization and fusion spell. So yeah, some pretty good effects. Pretty great effects. And then Starving Venom Fusion Dragon simply calls for 2 dark monsters. And then, but they have to specifically be on the field. They have to specifically be on the field. And its effect is, if it's fusion summon, you can make this card gain attack equal to 1 opponent's special summon monster until the end of the turn. Once per turn, you can target 1 level 5 or higher monster your opponent controls until the end phase. This card's name becomes that monster's original name, and place this effect with that monster's original effect. If this fusion summon card is destroyed, you can destroy all your opponent's special summon monsters. Wow. So, I forget what. Oh, you know what? Now I remember. The Destiny of Things Enforcer, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, you do. He does have an effect where you get to destroy himself, where you can destroy 1 card on each player's field. Yeah, I think so. So you can actually copy that effect, since that seems to be a pretty prevalent card. If you're able to copy that effect, that means its destruction-based ability is pretty easy to pull off. But I don't think it keeps the effect in the graveyard, so it's not going to be able to special summon itself. But still, like, you can destroy maybe like a back row, and then destroy all your opponent's special summon monsters. So that's pretty good. Like, stealing Phoenix Enforcer and some other effect that lets you be able to, like, destroy itself for an effect. because it can be destroyed in any way. So yeah. And then the next card is Predaplant Dragostapelia. It calls for 1 fusion monster plus 1 dark monster. So it's a little bit hard to bring out, but hey, actually this card works pretty well with super polymerization. Wow, this is another really good card that works well with super polymerization, because wow, yeah, that is great. This is a great super polymerization target as well, since your opponent is probably going to be going into fusion monsters, because most decks that aren't True Draco would want to, probably. There are a few other decks, like, I don't think the Dark Lords really need to, but like most decks probably will. So yeah, this is a great effect, especially since it has a quick effect also. So you get to use a fusion monster on your opponent's side of the field as material via the super polymerization, and then you can negate the activated effects of another of your opponent's monsters that you target to place a predator counter on. So yeah. And then you can do that again during your turn if your opponent has this monster kept on the field. So yeah, overall really good card, I would say. And then the next card is Supreme King Dragon Starving Venom. Must be the fusion summoned or special summoned by triggering the above cards you control. In which case you do not use polymerization. Once per turn, you can target 1 other monster on the field or in the graveyard until the end phase. This card's name becomes that monster's original name, and place this effect with that monster's original effect. Also, for the rest of the turn, if your monster attacks a defense position monster, inflict piercing battle damage to your opponent. So this is a really good card that was really oppressive for copying the effect of that Lyralus that does burn, and then was able to do a bunch of burn while I think being at like 5,000 attack and maybe 5,000 defense. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah. And then also it was really hard to get rid of it too. So yeah. So yeah, really impressive card there, but of course like it's still pretty good in general because like that like it can take one of your other monster's effects in the graveyard. Yeah, and then copy its name and its effects. So yeah, it's still really good, like just in general. Okay, so the next card is Predaplant Triffy over gain 3 dark monsters on the field, gains attack equal to total original attack of all other monsters on the field with a predator counter. You can only use each of the following effects of Predaplant Trifiovertum once per turn. When your opponent special monster from the next deck while you control this fusion summon card, quick effect, you can negate the summon, and if you do, destroy that monster. If your opponent controls a monster with a predator counter, you can special summon this card from the graveyard in defense position. So yeah, some pretty good effects. And it's a pretty good fusion super polymerization target as well. Anyway, the next card is 1 Predaplant monster plus 1 dark monster whose original level is 8 or higher. Must first be special fusion summon. Once per turn you can target 1 face-up monster on the field. Until the end of this turn, change that target's attack to 0. Also, that target has its effects negated. If this card is destroyed and sent to a graveyard, destroy as many monsters on the field as possible. Then you can banish 1 level 8 or higher dark monster from the graveyard and special summon this card from the graveyard. Wow, that's a pretty good effect too. You do have to use the dark monster's original level is 8 or higher. But its effect seems really good for the payoff. Especially the one where you destroy all of the all monsters on the field when it's destroyed. And you can special summon itself too. It can special summon itself. So that seems really good. Next card is Starving Venom Dragon, 1 dark monster plus 1 pendulum monster. So a really good super polymerization target against pendulum based decks. So yeah, so like they have some pretty good pure just overall good super polymerization cards. So yeah, this deck is probably helps out the super polymerization plays the best, just because its cards are in general pretty good for that. Anyway, its effect reads: you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls until the end phase. This card's name becomes that monster's original name and replace this effect with that monster's original effects. Then that monster loses 500 attack and defense. Its effects are negated, and you inflict a little bit of burn to your opponent. And you can only use this effect of solving. It's a hard once per turn, and if this card in the monster zone is destroyed, you place in the pendulum zone. And its pendulum effect reads: each time a card is sent from the field to a graveyard, place 1 venom counter on this card for each sent card. All monsters on the field except dark dragon monsters lose 200 attack for each venom encounter on the field. Once per turn, you can reduce the battle damage you take to 0. Wow, that's pretty good. So that's cool. Gives you some battle protection with its pendulum effect and some just natural like lowering of attack. Unfortunately, it lowers your main deck monsters attacks, but like that doesn't really matter as much because you're probably, and also it kind of lowers the attack of your Chimera Flager too, but most of Yeah, you do have a few other plant monsters, but I mean, pretty much just play the dragons, I guess, if you don't want the attack to be lowered of your own monsters. So yeah. And then this one is, so this is the last monster here. Starving Venomy Lethal Dose Dragon states, it calls for 3 Dark Pendulum monsters each time a card or cards is sent from the field to the graveyard. Place 1 Venomy counter on this card for each sent card. All monsters on the field except Dark Dragon monsters lose 200 attack for each Venomy counter on the field. Once per turn during your main phase, you can negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls until the end of this turn. If this card isn't in the monster zone destroyed by battle or card effect, you can place this card in your pendulum zone. And its pendulum effect reads, once per turn during main phase, you can place 1 Venomy counter on each face-up monster your opponent controls, and all monsters on the field except Dark Dragon monsters lose 200 attack for each Venomy counter on the field. Oh, so that's actually really good. So it's not each of theirs, it's just each Venomy counter. Wow, so the attack decrease can go up quite a bit pretty quickly. Wow. Anyway, some suggestions for changes I would make for the deck. I mean, the X deck already seems pretty good. You got some really good super polymerization targets, like, if your opponent is playing a dark deck, it's got that covered really well. The Mud Dragon covers some decks that like playing monsters with the same attribute but different types. And then Dragostapelia is good for a lot of the decks because a lot of the decks will be playing fusions, so it's good for a lot of the decks in this festival in general. and then Starving Venomy Dragon is really good for pendulum based decks. Unfortunately, you can only use one of your opponent's pendulum monsters, but that's still pretty good. But if your opponent is using multiple dark pendulums, this card is good against that. But like, then you can use some others that simply call for darks. Anyway. So yeah, the fusion, I mean, the X deck, maybe like if you want to put in even more generic, super polymerization targets, you could maybe take out a few of the duplicates that aren't as important, like maybe taking out at least 1 or 2, maybe just 1 Chimera to put in an extra super poly target, but still, it does seem actually really good. It seems like it works the best with super polymerization just in general. Anyway, some other cards I would probably take out. Maybe you could, I don't know if the Predaplant seems really good. Maybe adding a few more Predaplant, maybe at least 1 more. Taking out some kind of card for Predaplant. I don't know what you would take out though for Predaplant. Maybe adding another Predaprime fusion. Maybe even taking out the Necro fusion for a Predaprime fusion. Even though, well, Necrofusion is pretty good with its graveyard-based effect, with its ability to use graveyard monsters as materials. This one is a little bit harder. Yeah, so that's what I was thinking. Maybe taking out some sort of cards to put in a few extra copies of Predaplant and Predaprime, and then of course what I said. taking out maybe a Hydra and the Squid Drosera to add 2 more copies of Banks Yoga, and then maybe taking out, I think it's this one, the Marine Nempanthus, along with maybe the 2 Fly Traps to add in 3 Ash Blossoms, something like that. So anyway, I'm gonna be stopping there because it's almost time and I want to get through pack opening if I can. So I hope you all enjoyed this look at the Predaplant loner deck, and if you did enjoy, please ring the notification bell for if you like this content and want to be notified of new content, and also please like, share, and subscribe. And I'll be seeing all of you who don't want to stick around for multi-pack opening in the next video, and for the rest of you, please stick around. I'll be doing the multi-pack opening right now. I'll be opening legacy packs this time. I think I still have just enough time to open the packs one at a time. Oh wow, I have so many legacy pack tickets now. That's awesome. Okay. So first pack, I gotta go through a little bit quick since I'm running out of time here. So, so I got another Demise, and then there's Reborn Zombie. So, I think people would still play Demise in that deck along with the new ones. Paralyzing Chain and Kaiser Seahorse. Both probably won't really be seeing much play nowadays. Okay, Rasetsu and Big Koala. Ooh, it's foil too. So of course really good for that Koala fusion deck, but not many people will be playing that. Small Piece Golem and Satellite Cannon. Okay, Speed Warrior and Millennium Scorpion. That's also another, the Millennium Scorpion is also another really good farming card. There's a, oh yeah, and then Empoina, that's actually a really good card actually. And then Jabbing Panda. It probably works better as a side card. Oh, sorry. That I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, next cards. That card and Dark Scorpion, Cliff the Trap Remover. Cool. Okay, second Goblin and Power Supplier. And then last pack. Ooh, DDD Super Sight King Zero Maxwell. Cool. And then Mao Turkey. Okay. Where were the cards I passed? I'll just do it like this. So here's all the cards. You can feel free to pause if you want a better look, and then feel free to let me know what was your favorite card this pack opening. I think my favorite in competitive sites, probably the Appointment. I don't really use that a bunch though, but it's pretty good because you can like bring it out via trap trick, so it's pretty notable for that, I guess. And then Paralyzing Chain has some pretty cool artwork. Okay. Okay, so thank you all who stayed for the pack opening. I'll be seeing the rest of you in the next Lone Deck battles as well, hopefully. And the next episode will actually have me fighting with the Destiny Hero deck in a few duels. Okay, bye.